Montenegro's incumbent president will face a pro-European candidate next month after a first round of voting on Sunday. Montenegro's long-serving president Milo Djukanovic will face a political newcomer in a runoff presidential election next month. This as early projections show that none of the contenders won more than 50% in the first round of voting on Sunday. The incumbent Djukanovic is the candidate of the Democratic Party of Socialists.
Dakle, tu je ozbiljna prednost u odnosu na drugog kandidata sa kojim ću se takmičiti u drugom krugu, ali nije to samo razlog zadovoljstva i optimizma, nego i jasno prepoznavanje određenih rezervoara biračke podrške koji nisu aktivirani u prvom krugu.
Jakov Milatovic from the centrist party Europe Now.
Ovo je zajednička pobjeda. Oni koji su u prethodnih 30 godina bili diskriminisani, čija su djeca napustili Crnu Goru trbuhom za kruhom, koji nisu imali pravdu, koji su bili siromašni. Ovo je zajednička pobjeda lijepe, bolje, pravednije.
The presidential election was held amid political turmoil and uncertainty over whether the small NATO member state in the Balkans would unblock its bid to join the EU, or instead seek to improve ties with Serbia and Russia.
Everyone to the rescue. The European Central Bank has announced a coordinated move with 5 other big central banks to ensure liquidity and prevent a global banking crisis. The ECB, the banks of Canada, England and Japan, the US Federal Reserve and the Swiss National Bank intend to alleviate market tensions and ensure credit supply. Markets remain jittery despite the best efforts of regulators to restore calm. Fears of an escalating banking crisis loom large following the financial problems suffered by the embattled Credit Suisse Group and the bankruptcy of Silicon Valley Bank in the US. After losing 25% of its stock market value last week, the Swiss authorities urged banking giant UBS to buy its rival. UBS agreed and announced it would take on the group for a sum of €3 billion. The Swiss government has welcomed the deal and says the collapse of Credit Suisse would lead to incalculable consequences for the country and the international financial system.
The death toll for Saturday's earthquake at Ecuador's border with Peru rises to 15 and leaves over 500 people injured between both countries. The 6.5 magnitude tremor killed 14 people in the Ecuadorian provinces of El Oro and Azuay, those most affected by the quake, and also a 4-year-old girl in the Peruvian city of Tumbes. This was the most devastating earthquake in Ecuador since 2016, when a 7.8 shake claimed the lives of 673 people, destroyed coastal towns and led to losses amounting to over $3 billion.
Aid agencies in Turkey and Syria are calling for more funds ahead of a donors' conference in Brussels meant to assist earthquake-stricken regions. As entire cities have been wiped out, NGOs are demanding more resources to feed and accommodate people in need. In northern Syria, the situation is particularly difficult after 12 years of war and devastation.
It's been over a month, and the needs are still urgent at this point. People need the most basics, so they need food, water, shelter, and really just critical needs. That's both here in Turkey, where I am in southern Turkey, and across the border in Syria.
The damages after the earthquakes in Turkey alone might exceed $100 billion. According to the United Nations. Economists determine the cost of the disaster based on its immediate and indirect effects.
If you take into consideration the direct effects, then the amount is roughly $35 billion. And if you take into account the indirect effects, and the figure goes up to $75 to $80 billion.
Some organizations on the ground argue that the upcoming donor conference will be a sort of test for Europe. As so far in Syria, aid agencies have only received around a third of the necessary funds.